Busted. The Biden administration caught again with the FBI and the DOJ searching Joe Biden's property and not telling us about it. We're going to go through this story because the president's lawyer, Bob Bauer, issued a statement, but kind of right around the same time the media was revealing all of this to us. The White House for a long time has said that they are honest, open, and transparent. We're going to check in with Ian Sams and see what he has to say about it, along with Karine, before we finally get an opinion from Kamala at the conclusion of this segment. But let's start off with the backstory. Now, if you were following this as I was this morning, there was a lot of news stories that were posted, and they had different headlines, right? This morning, it was all, the headlines really involved different things like another search is continuing. You know, another search is ongoing. The president is having a separate home searched again, and they weren't notified about it. Karine Jean-Pierre didn't come out and say, hey, something's going on tomorrow, or so on and so forth, right? None of it happened. But then you fast forward, and a lot of the headlines switched. They all switched to, they found no classified documents. And you go, oh, that's great news, right? That's a really positive framing on this story, is to explain that there were no documents, and this was all just to make sure that, you know, the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted, and that the whole thing has been very cooperative. And as Karine reminds us, Joe Biden takes this very, very seriously, but not really, because he's got documents all over the place. Now, why are they searching this residence? Okay, we are now in February 2023. They found the first batch of documents November 2nd, 2022. And the Biden lawyers, as we've talked about many times here, were obstructing the DOJ efforts in that interim many times, because we saw repeatedly reported from the Washington Post and others that John Lausch, the DOJ, asked Biden's personal lawyers, stop searching for documents. They didn't listen. They kept searching for documents. How do we know this? They kept finding them. It wasn't the FBI that was finding them. So you have to forgive us when we're a little bit skeptical that they found no classified documents several months after the Biden people had a full opportunity to clean the whole situation up. Now, we'll see what comes out after the fact. They didn't find anything. That's great. Now, we also know that the National Archives has confirmed to us that they don't even have an inventory on all of the documents. We saw that in Deborah Steidel-Wall's letter. She confirmed when James Comer was writing, saying, I want to know what outstanding records exist. I want to know what overdue library books there are still out there. She said, I don't know, because we don't have inventory. I can't tell you what the total universe of documents was in the Joe Biden vice presidency, for example. So if Joe Biden was shredding documents, I don't know that they would ever even know about that, or that there would be any way to track that, because there's no chain of custody, apparently, on all of these documents. And that's not my words. That's Deborah Steidel-Wall, who told us that in her letter back to James Comer. So the media will parade this around. Wow, no classified documents. That's great. Don't know if they were shredded. Don't know, right? Another theme on this was that Joe Biden was reading the classified documents and transcribing the classified information into his notebook. So yeah, no, that's great. They didn't find any classified documents. Did they find notebooks with classified information? Let's see what the article says. The FBI search took place after documents with classified markings were found in two other residences, one in his office, one in Wilmington. They say that no classified documents were found during the FBI's search of Joe Biden's residence in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, on Wednesday. The DOJ planned search. We'll go through the statement from the lawyer. The FBI search of Biden's Rehoboth Beach house came amid ongoing classified documents investigations. A source familiar with the matter said no warrant was involved and the search was consensual, which is very, very unusual, because as we know, the DOJ told the Biden lawyers stop searching. They kept searching, which means they were obstructing the DOJ's investigation. When they said Trump was doing that, they got a warrant and they sent the FBI down there. So why didn't they do that in this case? It was consensual. Great. Earlier Wednesday, Bauer said in a statement the department was conducting a search. And we'll go through his statement. Documents with classified markings were found over from Wilmington. This says that the National Archives, which is responsible for retaining records, declined to comment on the search. And we're going to listen to James Comer a little bit later. He's going to explain to us that if you go over to the National Archives website, they're very chatty when it came to other records. Like with Donald Trump, they were putting out all sorts of statements and press releases combating that misinformation. But when it involves their guy, they're not too talkative, are they? The FBI searched the offices of the Penn Biden Center. Ian Sams, a spokesman, took questions outside. He says, we've been fully cooperative. We're going to listen to him in a minute. We're going to continue to provide information, he says. News of the search comes on the heels of ongoing investigations into Trump, into Pence. Other senators and oversight committee members have been talking about it. And so that's the update. Now, this is the official statement that came from Mr. Bob Bauer, the president's personal lawyer. Here's what he said. He writes, Jackie Heinrich posted this. She is a White House correspondent. She posted this February 1, 7:50 a.m. This came out from Bob Bauer. Biden's lawyer says, today, with the president's full support and cooperation, the DOJ is conducting a planned search of his home in Rehoboth, Delaware. Under DOJ standard procedures, in the interest of operational security and integrity, it sought to do this work without advance public notice, and we agreed to cooperate. The search today is a further step in a thorough and timely DOJ process we will continue to fully support and facilitate. We will have further information at the conclusion of today's search, right? So that's kind of the first statement. We're going to listen to see what Ian Sams says about this. So in other words, he's agreeing that they were going to keep this outside of public notice, right? He's very careful. This lawyer is pretty clever. It sought to do this work without advance public notice, and we agreed to cooperate. That doesn't answer the question if they would have made this public if the media had caught them, right? The media has people staked out of his different residences now. They're actually watching, right? And they're like, oh, well, here's that bunch of FBI agents, it looks like. And so they're reporting on this stuff. So Twitter sort of had notice of this before these statements were released. Everybody was tweeting about it last night. Boom, we wake up. Today, she posts 7:50 a.m. Today, here's what's going on. So it is very curious, right? If the media didn't catch them, would they have made this public? He doesn't say that. Without advance public notice, and we agreed to cooperate. Okay, but after the search, would you have then disclosed all of this or not? Probably not. The media is going to ask Karine about that when we get there. But let's turn our attention to Ian Sams. Now, we've explained that he's sort of front and center on this. Karine Jean-Pierre, they took the football away from her, and they basically gave it to a carbon copy version of her who's a little bit, better with words. And he is now handling all of these questions, and he's doing it outside on the White House lawn, essentially. So he just walks out, and the media surrounds him, and they start asking him a bunch of questions. And it's sort of an interesting strategy, right? Trump did this. It is difficult for the media. They're all standing around. Everybody's shouting questions. It's really hard to hear. Okay, there's no microphone, so one media person asks a question, and he's recording, but the person who's, 10 feet away on the other side of the circle is recording and can't pick up the audio, and then he asks a question, and that guy can't pick up the audio. So it's very disorienting, and it's very hard to clip this stuff, and it's hard to, really deliver good communication. That's kind of the point of this. It kind of makes the media look, kind of dumb and discombobulated, which is why Trump used it so effectively. They're using the same strategy here to try to drag this out and to sort of, make this a difficult line of inquiry every time the media wants to dig in. But they did. And so let's turn over to our first clip. The media asks Ian Sams, how long was this planned? Okay, the FBI showed up in Rehoboth. We have been asking you, Ian, and Karine, and Bob Bauer, and Biden, and the DOJ, and the White House counsel's office, and everybody, for all sorts of information about this. And you just tell us that there's nothing going on. And then suddenly we wake up and the FBI is searching the president's house. How long was this planned?
You said the search was planned. How long was it planned for? Were there any parameters for the search? You said they searched everything on the property. And then the other question, was there any reason to believe that anybody else in the Biden family would have also had access to these same documents?
Yeah, I'm not going to...
Question, how long was the search planned for? Next question, anyone else have access to these documents, right? Because, of course, that's Hunter Biden, and we have seen some very interesting emails from him that look like they were copy and pasted from defense intelligence briefings that got sent over to interesting business relationship individuals in other parts of the world, foreign countries, that conveniently were funneling money and other things back into him.
speak to sort of the negotiations or discussions or collaborations between the president's personal attorney and DOJ in establishing the search. We're cooperating fully with the Justice Department. We're cooperating fully with the Justice Department and ensuring that they have access to the House, the Rehoboth House today, the Wilmington House previously.
So they're going to keep going. So he doesn't answer the questions, right? Don't want to step in front of any of this stuff. Don't want to get in the way. You're going to hear a lot of that from him. So we'll just get right into it. Another question came in about transparency. And this is from, again, most of these clips I think are from Fox News. Ian Sams gets asked about this concept of transparency. Like broken records, that's what Karine Jean-Pierre has been telling us. We've been open and transparent this entire time when we know they haven't. Okay, we've gone through the timeline here. I don't want to make every single show about the timeline, but there's a bunch of questions we have about the transparency that the White House has been providing all of us, including what happened on November 3rd. Why were they still searching for documents that they found on December 20th? Why didn't Karine Jean-Pierre tell us anything about that second batch of documents when she came out and lied by omission to us on January 12th, the same day Robert Hur got appointed, right? Why were all of these things kept under the rug for so long? Well, it's because they were trying to cover it up, but they can't, continue to lie to us and tell us this was all open and transparent when this stuff keeps going on.
You called Ian, why did it take so long for the search of the Rehoboth Beach residence to occur? And who today from the White House, if anyone, was there?
That's a good question. So we've been working directly with the Justice Department from the very beginning, as soon as the initial set of materials was discovered at the Penn Biden Center.
So it sounds like they have been working with the DOJ, so they knew this search was going on all the way back till when? November 2nd is kind of what he said. We've been working with them from the very beginning. So they had this information. They could have communicated it to all of us. The search was happening. They didn't.
And it was reported to the archives, and the archives notified the Justice Department about the finding. And we've worked, the president's personal attorneys, I should say, have worked closely with the Justice Department through this process, and White House counsel's office as well. White House counsel's office was not present today to answer that question. And we've been following the Justice Department's lead and coordinating these searches with them. And so, if you want to ask granular questions about the decision making about the search or the timing or anything like that,
talk to the DOJ.
I'd refer you to the Justice Department.
Yeah, doesn't want to answer any of those questions, right? Talk to them. And so this stupid game goes around and around again. It's like a merry-go-round. The White House refers over to the White House counsel spokesperson, Ian Sams. Ian Sams can't really talk too much about it because the personal lawyer to the president is also working on it. And if you have any questions about literally any other component of the investigation, well, I got to talk to NARA about that one, or talk to the DOJ. And we're just following their lead. And their lead, of course, is, in my humble opinion here, is to protect their administration. It's to protect the president, because Merrick Garland is Joe Biden's AG. So why are they going to go and suddenly go hard against Joe Biden? No, they'll go raid President Trump, but they're not going to do the same thing against Joe Biden. And so they don't want to answer any questions. Everybody's pointing their fingers around and around again, and it becomes very frustrating. So the media dives in and they ask, what about any additional documents? Okay, how about some specifics about what they found? We know that there are ideas that there are individual documents, okay, like one piece of paper is one classified document. 2 pieces of paper is 2 classified documents. But what if it is a document that's a binder, or it is a memo, right? A classified intelligence document that is a briefing on, a big foreign trip or something that involves a few hundred pages or a few thousand pages, or classified materials, meaning a box of materials that contain other things, right? The language has been very fleeting. We really don't know what they're talking about here. And so the media wants to know more now. Why are they searching Rehoboth? First of all, do they not think that Joe Biden is being honest with them? I mean, the lawyers searched Rehoboth too, right? So they would have made a recommendation to the DOJ. We did our due diligence. Everything's fine. Do the lawyers for the U.S. Attorney's Office not believe Biden's lawyers? Do they need to do a second search? Was some of the additional information that was found in Wilmington or in Penn Biden Center, was it so serious and damning that the DOJ just had to do a double check, a secondary sweep, because they didn't trust them? And if that's the case, why did it take months now? We're in February now to investigate all of this stuff. We'll learn more if we can know more about the documents. And so they get asked specifically about this. Ian Sams, how many documents were there?
Can you say confidently whether you believe there are any more classified documents? Like there were none found today. Do you think this closes the door on classified documents that will be discovered?
question is about the classified documents. Very hard to hear. Can you assure us that there aren't any more, that there not going to be any more? Have we got the totality of all the documents?
Look, the Justice Department is engaged in an ongoing investigation. An ongoing investigation, I should add, that the president has been fully cooperative in, offering unprecedented access to his home in Wilmington, to his home, every single room of his home in Rehoboth, as well as the one in Wilmington.
Yeah, because he didn't want a warrant, right? He didn't want a warrant, right? Because that's what they would have done, right? They would have issued a warrant and gone and raided him. Is that what you're saying?
And giving them access to the information they need. He's moving quickly to get them the information that they need.
That's all because he's in direct violation of the law. Obviously. What's he going to do? Trump made a claim. I'm so sick of this stupid talking point. They say that, look, it's this obstruction talking point. They're trying to drive a wedge between these two issues. They're trying to say Trump, the possession by Trump was not illegal. The obstruction was the problem. And they're saying that Joe Biden is not obstructing here. He has no basis because he has no claim to the documents in the first place. Trump made a claim to the documents, which is why he is allowed to use those defenses. Trump can say, I was not being cooperative because I have a claim. They're mine. They're declassified. They're presidential records. I've got lawful authority to have them. Biden can't make that claim, right? This happened when he was a senator. They shouldn't have even been there. We heard from Ted Cruz the possibility that those documents are the one theory as to how those documents left the SCIF and ended up in Joe Biden's residence is that they were inserted into different locations on his body. We speculated maybe diapers. You could probably fit a bunch in there. You crinkle a little bit when you're walking around, but probably nobody would even care. They'd be like, that's Joe. He's just crinkling all the time. It's probably why Jerry Nadler has been waddling around Congress all the time. He's probably just carrying confidential documents, classified materials all over the place. Yeah. So that's a good question, right? Where is it coming from? Why did it take so long to search all of this? Why are we just finding out about it all now?
I'm going to be really careful not to characterize what the Justice Department is doing in their investigation. Probably more appropriate for a question like that to be asked of the Justice Department. So I would point you to them.
All right. So nothing on that one either. The next question is a follow-up. What is the absolute total number of documents that we're talking about here that might come up?
What is the total number of documents bearing classified markings that have been turned up as part of this?
That's a good question. I think that's probably a more appropriate question for the Justice Department. I don't want to characterize sort of what they're reviewing and how they're going through all that.
Doesn't want to answer that question either. So we're going to go to NARA. We're going to hear about this NARA issue. Now, I think this is going to be a big issue. Comer is going to explain that they interviewed several people from the National Archives, the head librarians, and he's going to tell us that they said something that the media asks Ian Sams about, and Karine Jean-Pierre also gets asked about this, and she is not wanting to talk about it. So we're going to hear about all of that in a minute. First, before we get to James Comer, we know James Comer is a very vibrant man, a lot of energy. And so I was asking myself, how does he get so much done with all of those letters being written all over the place? And I don't know, but I would imagine he's probably somebody who eats his vegetables. And I want to tell you about our friends over at Field of Greens, because as we all know, it would be very nice to drop some of those leftover holiday and pandemic pounds. But how sick are you of those fad diets and those weight loss pills and all that garbage? You've been there, done that. They don't work. You know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruit and vegetables every day. You do that and the weight would probably just fall right off. But, vegetables, not a fan. Who's got time to prepare all the fruits and all that stuff? So let's talk instead about Field of Greens. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula of specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you can burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you'll look and you'll feel healthier very fast. But the greater proof was going to come at the next checkup when your doctor says, you look outstanding. What have you been doing? Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Let's get you started. Go on over to fieldofgreens.com and you can save 15% off your very first order with code Robert. Fieldofgreens.com, code Robert, and you can save. Get your real organic superfood, Field of Greens. Start getting ultra energized and feel vibrant yourself, just like James Comer. Speaking of Comer, let's turn our attention over to him. James Comer is the head of the Oversight Committee, and he was on explaining what he did when he met with the National Archives, NARA, the head librarians, the people who are in charge of all of these records, the people who are inventorying what goes where and how it all works. Well, James Comer sent a letter over to the National Archives, and he said, all right, you people were going bananas when this involved the Trump documents. Why don't you give me some information about the Biden documents now? And they came in for an interview, and it was apparently transcribed, and we learned something interesting.
Peddling with our adversaries, we're using those classified documents inappropriately. If they had any access to the documents and if they viewed the documents, that's illegal. Certainly, if they were trying to peddle those documents for money, that's criminal. So it also jeopardizes our national security. That's why we need to get answers to this right now. That's why we brought in the National Archives today for our very first transcribed interview.
And can you tell us what happened? Did they shed any light on any of this?
Do tell.
Well, right before the National Archives came in, they handed us a letter from the Department of Justice informing them and us that the General Counsel for the National Archives wasn't allowed to say anything about the Biden documents.
What? Did you hear that? The DOJ sent a letter to the National Archives, and the National Archives showed up and they said, sorry, we can't talk about this. The Department of Justice said no. Sorry. That's from the House Oversight. The DOJ just issued a gag order, essentially, on the National Archives so that the House Oversight Committee can't do their job.
We went ahead and we had about a 3+ hour transcribed interview with the General Counsel. And what we learned was there is a double standard here with how Donald Trump was treated versus Joe Biden. And I'll give you an example, Sean. If you go on the National Archives website, there's pages and pages of press releases and information about the FBI's raid into Mar-a-Lago and Donald Trump's possession of classified documents. But there's nothing on the website about Joe Biden. There wasn't any press release or anything on the website about Joe Biden. So we asked the General Counsel, why were there no press releases sent on Joe Biden once it was determined that he had classified documents in his possession? And the counsel said that he did do press releases, but he was ordered and told they couldn't be published.
Whoa!
So we then asked who gave him the orders, and he said, I can't tell you that, but there are only two people that could have given him those orders, and that's either the Department of Justice with Merrick Garland or the White House with Joe Biden. So it shows right there that this Department of Justice and this White House is interfering with this and treating Donald Trump very differently than they're treating Joe Biden.
All right, so to summarize, this is pretty amazing, okay? James Comer sent a demand to the National Archives, NARA, the head librarian of the whole country, and said, you come in here and talk to us. She said, we don't really want to do it. And he said, well, you better. And so they fight. All right, fine. Don't send us a subpoena. We'll come in and talk to you. When they showed up, they got a gag order from the DOJ, the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland, Biden's Attorney General, sent a letter over to the National Archives and said, when you show up to Comer's office for this transcribed interview, you are not allowed to talk about this. This is our legal conclusion. The executive branch is raising its force field to stop them from communicating about any of these things. So they said, okay, so certain lines of questioning, I can't answer that on order of the DOJ. Biden's people are putting the force fields up to stop the National Archives from talking about it. Okay, that's point one. Point two is when they showed up there, Comer starts the interview and he asks him about this little double standard thing. He says, this is really weird. You have all of these press releases that you published about Trump because Trump was coming out and he was saying, they're my documents and nobody has a right to them and I declassify them and they're personal. And they said, no, they're not personal records because of this. And they said, no, we're the head librarian and we say what works here. We're more powerful than you, Mr. President, and all that stuff. And the Democrats were saying, that's true, right? And all of these press releases, one after the other, NARA is defending itself. So why are they not also guiding America through this difficult question about what Joe Biden has done with his documents? Well, they wanted to. But the Biden people said, no, you can't do that. They confirmed that to James Comer in that interview. Can you tell me why you're not writing press releases for Biden? Well, we did, actually. We got drafts of them. The Biden people said we couldn't publish them.
Well, I want to hone in on that. So
yeah,
in the
definitely.
last 48 hours, the Department of this, then some of these the home entirely differently.
All right, let's hone in on Comer. Let's listen to Comer.
More about their documents. Are they allowed to talk about their documents? And the general counsel for the National Archives said he didn't have any problem with the White House being transparent about what's going on with their investigation. So it's not the National Archives. It's the Department of Justice. It's Merrick Garland's Department of Justice.
Wow.
And remember, Sean, we wouldn't even know about the fact that Joe Biden had classified documents in his possession were it not for a leak to CBS News. So someone leaked this out.
They didn't tell us anything.
We would never have heard it from this White House. They would have covered it up forever, like all the other cover-ups they're doing with every major part of our investigation into the Biden family influence peddling.
Now, here's the interesting interpret to take it with
treating, again, former President Trump very differently than they're being treated themselves, is the fact that we requested the same type of information on Joe Biden that my predecessor, Democrat Chairwoman Maloney, requested on Donald Trump. National Archives gave them every bit of information she requested on Donald Trump, but they never gave me any information. And once again, the reasoning was the general counsel said he printed all the information, he answered all our questions, but he wasn't allowed to turn it over to us. So once again, the only people that could prohibit him from answering our request was either the Department of Justice or the White House.
Unbelievable, absolute corruption, total scammers in there in that DOJ. They are not disclosing Biden information about the same material that other Congresspeople, she's not in Congress anymore, Carolyn Maloney, I think she lost to the waddling Jerry Nadler, but she demanded answers about Trump, and NARA sent them all over to her. Here you go, here's a whole friggin' portfolio, and they gave it to her. Same materials that Comer wants, the Biden White House is using the DOJ to say no. This is a massive scandal. These people are so corrupt, and the double standards are naked and on display. You can see them right there for you because it literally is the same situation. It's nuts. Mr. Irresponsible Biden did the exact same thing that he was criticizing Trump for, and you can see the reactions are opposite, and America is noticing that. So we'll wrap up with, actually, here is Ian Sams. He gets asked about this. Comer made that statement, and it raised a lot of eyebrows, ours included. Sean Hannity's included as well. And so the press asked Ian Sams about that. Hey, Ian, you're the spokesman for the White House. Can you tell us, did you people at the DOJ, did you put the pressure down on the neck of NARA, the head librarians, to force them to not communicate?
Anyone at the White House at any point tell the National Archives in any form that they could not release a press release about the discovery of classified documents?
What's that in reference to?
There's reporting that came from the House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, who says that in his conversations with the National Archives, they communicated that they were told, the Archives was told it could not release a press release at whatever point it was about the discovery of classified documents. And anyone at the White House tell them not to do that.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. If that's actually what he said, it's probably better to ask the Archives if that's actually what was said and try to understand a little bit more what he meant.
Ian, how long was today's search?
We just heard from Comer that the Archives said that they are not allowed to talk about it, right? The DOJ said, you're kind of part of the executive branch, and we've done our analysis. I can't wait to see what that letter says. I can't wait for Comer to release that letter and say, what did the DOJ say? What is their posture on this? If it was good enough to disclose the records for Trump, why wasn't it good enough to disclose the records for Biden? Is it because he's a sitting president? Is that why? Isn't that more of a reason to disclose it? Because he can still exercise power. Trump is not in power anymore. Doesn't he have a massive conflict of interest by being the sitting president who actually runs the DOJ, right? Through Merrick Garland, his appointee. Massive conflict of interest. Everything should be Trump times 100 because Trump's just a private citizen. This is the sitting president. Absolutely amazing. Now, the media is not happy that they're not getting any answers. They continue on, and Ian Sams continues to bloviate. Here's another question from the media.
Simple, just to be very clear, has the FBI conducted any searches of any other locations associated with the president that you or the White House is aware of?
Look, I think we're providing information as this goes on and answering questions about the search activities as they've been happening. I don't want to speak too much to the DOJ's practices in an ongoing investigation. I can say, that we have cooperated fully. The president's personal attorneys have provided information to DOJ. We've addressed openly and directly the searches that were conducted first at the president's Wilmington residence and then today at the Rehoboth residence. You saw in the statement that was released by the president's personal attorney, for example, that no documents with classified markings were found in Rehoboth today. And so, we're going to continue to try to provide information as this investigation goes on and ensure that
no documents were found 3 months later.
You guys have the ability to share with the American people sort of the information that is important for them to see as the president's cooperating with this investigation. So I want to be very careful to respect the integrity of that investigation, not speak too much to the Justice Department's decision making and their activities. But as it's appropriate, like we did today, if we have information to share about activities that have been conducted, we will do that.
They don't share anything. He says if more pops up and they got to tell us about it, they're going to share it. They didn't share it. We're going to hear from the media. They don't even believe the White House would have been transparent about this if they had not been caught by the media. So let's go through this one. One final clip. This is an amazing one. The media wants to know why Ian Sams and the White House counsel are not being open, honest, and transparent. And Ian says, what are you talking about? We've given you like 1,000 words about this.
This search, but you did not disclose that the FBI also searched the president's former private office here in Washington. Do the American people have a right to know about that?
Question is, do the American people have a right to know about all these ongoing searches that you don't tell us about? Here's what he says.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty transparent from the very beginning with providing information as it occurs throughout this process.
Really?
We have released probably thousands of words of statements from the president's personal attorney and the White House.
Do you hear that? Thousands of words of statements. Do you hear that? Thousands of words of statements. Did you see his little paragraph that he released? It's been like a couple paragraphs every now and then. Somebody should calculate and add up all those words. Do a word count. I think he's lying on his essay submission. I don't think he hit the 1,000-word threshold. I think he's a couple hundred words, maybe. But that is supposed to be good enough for you, America. Is that good enough for you? Like a couple thousand words about one of the biggest scandals and cover-ups in, Biden administration history for sure. Arguably bigger than that if he is covering up, something much more nefarious, which is yet to be seen. A couple thousand words. Isn't that nice? Here it is again.
Disclosed that the FBI also searched the president's former private office here in Washington. Do the American people have a right to know about that?
Yeah, I think we've been pretty transparent from the very beginning with providing information as it occurs throughout this process. We have released probably thousands of words of statements from the president's personal attorney and the White House counsel's office about the process that has been undertaken here, that process that has been fully coordinated with the Justice Department as they conduct an ongoing investigation.
So they know when these searches are going on and they're not telling us about them, right? So he just kind of admitted that they are working in conjunction with them, hand in hand. Everything is going by their book, but they're just not telling us.
And we want to be very careful to be respectful of the integrity of that ongoing investigation. And
especially if being respectful of the integrity of that ongoing investigation means that we don't have to answer any questions to you. And if we can get away with it, you're not even going to know about this stuff. Okay. We're only hearing about the stuff that has popped up. The White House, up until this point, has not voluntarily offered us anything. Not one thing, from as far as I can tell. Everything else has been demanded from the media and something that you have to sort of reveal as part of the process when you get caught covering something up. So they're acting like this is all out of the goodness of their heart. They're being open, honest, and transparent. They're not answering any questions about it. The media agrees.
So I think that it's important to understand that as these things develop and as information develops throughout an investigation, we're trying to get you guys access to as much information as we can. And with regards to that specific question, I don't have anything to add for you right now. I think it's probably more appropriate that question specifically about something that happened a few months ago be asked to the Justice Department.
Okay, again, no questions at all. So that was the most of what the press conference sounded like. Very little new information. They are going out and telling us that they're being open, transparent, and answering questions. But as you saw, we went through, 8 clips there, and not a single new bit of information came out, other than they're just continuing to work with the DOJ. They're not going to tell us anything more. We do know, not from the White House, but from Comer and the interview with the National Archives that there may be another cover-up where they're trying to get the National Archives to shut their mouths. The media is asking about that as well. We go over to the White House. Now, right after Ian Sams did his thing outside, they turned over to Karine. Karine came out and got asked a bunch of questions. There's a bunch of stuff going on right now, debt ceiling and a bunch of stuff. We're focused only on the documents. And so one of the first questions came from this woman, and she asked a question about some other thing and then slipped in the documents question because she knows how Karine gets irritated with them. And so she says, how can you possibly expect the American people to consider this to be a transparent display or just transparent conversation with the American people when you are not telling us about this stuff and we all wake up and then poof, there's another search or there's another document or there's some other scandal going on. Help us out, Karine.
And on documents, Ian addressed a version of this at the Sticks a little bit ago, but I'm wondering how the White House can claim that they are being transparent when the FBI search of the Penn Biden Center that happened months ago was not proactively disclosed to the public, and what should the public take away from the fact that you are keeping information like this from the public?
Look, I'm going to be very prudent from here. I'm going to be very consistent from here.
Right.
I'm just not going to comment anything that is related to what is currently happening. This is a legal process. As you just mentioned, my colleague was right outside these doors answering many of your questions. He has done that these past couple of weeks, I believe 4 weeks now, and he'll continue to do that. Anything that is specific to this particular process, I would refer you to the Department of Justice and also, again, my colleagues at the White House Counsel's Office.
Just following up on that, I understand you're not going to discuss the details or anything, but just, is there a reason that 2 of the searches were disclosed and not the search?
I interrupt this broadcast to introduce Leaf Blower Guy. Can you hear him? Can you hear him? Shout out to Leaf Blower Guy. Love it when he comes right now. Perfect. We love Leaf Blower Guy. We love you. Shout out from Watching the Watchers. We love Leaf Blower Guy on this show. He's working hard. Shout out to Leaf Blower Guy. Here he is. He's right outside. All right. We love Leaf Blower Guy. He's our favorite. You know, he surprises us from time to time. He just comes out and he's just, we're here.
Search of the Penn Biden Center, you mentioned this is a legal process. Is there a legal reason why you're disclosing only 2 and not what we know as a 3rd search?
I'm going to refer you to the White House Counsel's Office.
Okay, then another question on the meeting today with Speaker McCarthy.
All right, so Karine Jean-Pierre is fielding questions from the media, not answering any of them, continuing to defer everything over to the White House counsel and the DOJ, but the media doesn't relent. They've got more questions, and we're going to get over to them. And yes, shout out to Leaf Blower Guy. He's out there doing a tremendous job. Leaves are a pain in the butt. They're floating all over the place, and so we're grateful for all of our leaf blowing friends out there. All right, and so let's continue on. Now, another question came in. Of course, we just heard that Ian Sams was giving press briefings out on the White House lawn in the middle of the gardens, essentially. Well, why not bring those press briefings in the White House? Like Karine has a podium here. Karine, you've got a podium. It's nice, air conditioned. It's warm in here. We're all got chairs. We're all seated. We can hear each other. There's cameras. Why can't Ian Sams just come up to the podium and talk to us here, Karine?
Thank you, Karine. Just 2 quick, how we all do our jobs around here questions, and then 1 or 2 on the president. Why not have Ian brief in here?
Well, Ian was outside and took your questions.
But why not in here like other government officials?
Again, Ian was outside and took your question, and he's been doing that for the last 4 weeks.
Would the White House have revealed today's search if pool cameras hadn't caught the investigators arriving on scene?
Busted.
Again, this is a question for the White House Counsel's Office. I would refer you to them.
Great question. Did you hear that question? Would the White House, this gentleman here, would the White House have released that statement from Bob Bauer, the lawyer? Would Ian Sams have delivered a statement had the media not busted you guys? Had they not been sitting outside Rehoboth and watched the FBI agents show up? Would you have been honest with us, Karine?
to on the president. Why not have Ian Briefen here?
Well, Ian was outside and took your questions.
But why not in here like other government officials?
Again, Ian was outside and took your question, and he's been doing that for the last 4 weeks.
Would the White House have revealed today's search if pool cameras hadn't caught the investigators arriving on scene?
Again, this is a question for the White House counsel's
No.
office. I would refer you to them.
No, they wouldn't have told us because they haven't told us anything. All they do is they refer over to the DOJ and they say, well, we can't possibly, interfere with an ongoing investigation over there. And we don't want to jeopardize what they're working on. And we want to be respectful, is what Ian Sam said, like a broken record. They conveniently have a bunch of other agencies to point to defer their questions to. But they have not openly revealed new information to us. They've been trying to cover this puppy up. And so another question came in about that NARA issue. Of course, James Comer told us that NARA said that they wanted to talk all about this, but they were silenced from the DOJ. NARA got a letter from the DOJ that said, shut your mouths when you're talking to James Comer. He's going to ask you hard questions that are very, very bad for us, and we don't want you to answer them. So the question for Karine in the White House is, did you people direct NARA to be silenced and not respond to questions from legitimate House oversight?
I asked this of Ian Sams outside when he took our questions. Earlier, I want to ask of you, though, because I think it is for the wider White House, not just the special counsel's office, which is, did anyone at the White House tell the National Archives at any point not to issue a press release about the discovery of classified documents?
I would really refer you to the White House counsel's office, who has been running this process, and refer you to them.
Even if it's something that's not just in their purview, it would be wider within the entire White House?
Because this is, when it relates to the DOJ, when it relates to special counsel, this is something that's been under their purview, so I would refer you to them.
Absolutely nuts. So is it a policy now of the White House? Did the White House change its policy? Did NARA change its policy? Because you released all the Trump materials, but now you're not releasing the Biden materials. So that is an official White House policy change. Isn't that what you're supposed to be there to answer questions about, Karine? But she doesn't. Our last question comes from this woman, and she asks a question a little bit differently, but I think she still gets shut down. She says, look, you are telling us you're being transparent. We don't think you are. You say that you'll tell us about things when they are appropriate to tell us about. Sort of, you're putting us on a need-to-know basis. You say we don't need to know. We think we do. But okay, let's just set that standard. Okay. Will you, Karine, promise that you will tell us about important things when they pop up, right? We think that transparency is a much lower bar. We want to know a lot more. You think that transparency means that you can tell us only about very certain specific things. We disagree on that. However, according to your standard of what transparency is, are you going to tell us things?
I have one quick one on documents that went to student loans. Understanding that you can't tell us why the FBI search at the Biden Center wasn't disclosed previously, and that Ian Sams has referred to questions about the National Archives possibly being blocked from sending a press release to DOJ. Understanding you can't talk about any of that. Can you assure us that the White House has been and continues to be as transparent as possible, meaning that where there haven't been disclosures, something has prevented that?
Another question. If you didn't tell us about something, there must be good reason as to why. Now look at this guy looking directly at the camera, giving us the he knows what Karine's going to say here.
What I can say is what the president has said many times, and you've seen it in our statements, is that we are cooperating fully. The president and his team is cooperating fully, and we will continue to do that. And I'll just leave it there.
On student loans.
Nothing there. Okay, so again, they're not going to be telling us if they're transparent or not, or what the situation is. So we get very little new information from Karine. We can speculate that they would not have released any of this information if the media did not catch them red-handed. Debatable point. But we want to know what the White House is doing in order to quell Americans' concerns about this, confidential classified materials document problem that is ongoing. And somebody who is in charge of some very important issues in this country is our vice president. Very competent leader. She is going to be sharing with us an explanation of how America is going to reach the stars. And this clip comes from, my understanding is, a speech delivering honors to the actual astronauts who are in the audience. This is not in front of a kindergarten classroom. Let's see what Kamala has to say to reassure us all that our future is bright.
Which brings me to May 30th, 2020.
Tell us, Cami.
Bob and Doug returned to the Kennedy Space Center.
Mm-hmm.
They suited up.
Mm-hmm.
They waved to their families.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they rode an elevator up nearly 20 stories.
20 stories?
They strapped in to their seats and waited as the tanks beneath them filled with tens of thousands of gallons of fuel.
Whoa!
And then they launched. Yeah, they did.
Yeah. They launched. Where'd they go, into outer space? Wow, that's our vice president. Oh my gosh. There are adults in that room. Adults. That's not a first grade classroom, my friends. What is this? What is she doing? What is happening? I don't even know. All right, so that's the level of competence that we have from the White House. Of course, we will continue to cover the document saga. Does Kamala have any classified documents in her closets, or are they just coloring books and crayons? I have no idea, but we're going to continue to cover it. We appreciate you joining us as we do. Thank you for hitting the subscribe button and liking this video wherever it is you are watching it. We will continue to cover